Neverland Ranch, once a fantasy land built by Michael Jackson, the king of pop. It was a private kingdom amusement park, zoo, movie theater, and gardens, all hidden from the world. Today the gates are closed, the laughter and lights are gone. Now called Sycamore Valley Ranch, its magic has faded and buyers are scarce. Nearly 2,700 acres of stunning California real estate with a grand mansion and every luxury. But Neverland is more than a property, it's a monument to Jackson's complicated legacy. For some, it's a symbol of creative genius and generosity. Jackson opened it to underprivileged children. For others, it's a reminder of the dark allegations that haunted his final years. Neverland stands as a cultural artifact holding both wonder and sorrow. The question remains, who would want to inherit such a complex piece of history? Why does Neverland remain unsold, despite its fame and beauty? In a world where billionaires buy unique estates, Neverland lingers on the market. The price has dropped, but buyers stay away. The challenge isn't just financial, upkeep is massive, but the real issue is its past. Neverland's identity is inseparable from Michael Jackson and the scandals that unfolded there. Buying Neverland means inheriting its story, its controversies, and the world's divided opinions. This investigation explores why Neverland is so hard to sell. We'll look at Jackson's dream, the property's legal and financial woes, and the emotional baggage it carries. Neverland's saga is more than real estate. It's a reflection of a celebrity legacy that still haunts us. To understand Neverland, you must understand Michael Jackson's lost childhood. Thrust into stardom with the Jackson 5, he missed out on innocence and play. In 1988, he bought Sycamore Valley Ranch and transformed it into Neverland, a world inspired by Peter Pan. He built an amusement park, a movie theater, a zoo, and even a private railroad. Every detail was designed to recapture the joy he never had. Neverland became his self-made utopia, a place where he could finally be a child. Bronze statues, a floral clock, and exotic animals filled the grounds. For Jackson, it was more than escape, it was therapy, a physical manifestation of his deepest desires. Neverland was his answer to a lost childhood, a fantasy world built to keep reality at bay. But this dream would soon face harsh realities. In its prime, Neverland was a place of wonder and generosity. Jackson opened his gates to thousands of underprivileged and sick children, offering them a day of magic. The media showed him as a benevolent figure, giving others the childhood he missed. Celebrities flocked to Neverland for parties and private events. Elizabeth Taylor even married there. Oprah's famous interview gave the world a rare glimpse inside. For a time, Neverland was a beacon of hope, creativity, and joy. It was the peak of Jackson's vision, a place where fantasy and reality blurred. But the innocence that defined Neverland would soon be overshadowed by controversy. Neverland was more than a playground, it was Jackson's fortress of solitude. Hounded by fame, he retreated behind its gates for peace and creative inspiration. The ranch's vastness offered privacy no other place could. Here he could live, create, and entertain without the world's scrutiny. But isolation came at a cost, detaching him from reality and fueling public suspicion. The sanctuary that protected him also made him seem more mysterious and misunderstood. In the end, the walls of Neverland couldn't keep out the storm of controversy. The dreamland became a battleground for Jackson's legacy, one that still divides opinion today. In 1993, the idyllic image of Neverland Ranch was shattered. A 13-year-old boy accused Michael Jackson of child molestation. The news exploded, devastating Jackson's fans and casting a sinister light on Neverland. The sleepovers, toys, and close relationships with children were now viewed with suspicion. Neverland became the epicenter of a massive scandal. The ranch was no longer just a home, it was a piece of evidence. Jackson denied the allegations, but the damage to his and Neverland's reputation was done. The scandal created a lasting crack in the public's perception. The settlement left a permanent stain, a question that would hang over Neverland forever. The shadows grew darker in November 2003. Neverland Ranch was subjected to a massive police raid, part of a new investigation into allegations against Michael Jackson. It was a full-scale invasion of his private world. They were looking for any evidence to support the new claims. Neverland was his sanctuary. The police raid turned his fortress into a crime scene. The raid had a devastating impact on how the public viewed Neverland. This cemented the ranch's connection to the darkest of accusations. Michael Jackson's relationship with Neverland was irrevocably broken. He would eventually leave the ranch, vowing never to return. The police raid marked the symbolic end of Neverland as a functioning home. It was now just a place filled with bad memories. Following the raid, Michael Jackson was formally charged with multiple counts of child molestation. The subsequent trial in 2005 put Neverland Ranch itself on display for the entire world to judge. The prosecution's case relied heavily on painting the ranch as a carefully constructed fantasy world designed to lure and entrap young boys. They presented the property not as a place of childlike wonder, but as a tool for a predator. The amusement park, the movie theater, the zoo, and the sleepovers were all portrayed as part of a sophisticated grooming process. Every charming detail of Neverland was twisted and presented as evidence of a sinister plot, turning Jackson's dream into the prosecution's main exhibit. During the trial, the jury and the world were taken on a virtual tour of the ranch. Prosecutors showed maps, photographs, and even a video walkthrough of the main house. They focused on Jackson's bedroom, its layout, and the secluded nature of his living quarters. Witnesses described the inner workings of the estate, testifying about the free-flowing alcohol and the unsupervised access children had to Jackson. The testimony transformed Neverland from a private sanctuary into a public spectacle of the most sordid kind. The ranch's reputation was dragged through the mud day after day in court, its name becoming synonymous with the grim details of the allegations. The trial was a media circus of unprecedented scale. For months, the town of Santa Maria was overrun with journalists, satellite trucks, and devoted fans. The proceedings were covered in excruciating detail by news outlets globally. Neverland was the silent star of the show, its name repeated endlessly in headlines and news reports. This constant negative association solidified the ranch's dark new identity in the public consciousness. It was no longer the magical kingdom of the King of Pop. It was the infamous property at the center of one of the most sensational celebrity trials in history. In the end, Michael Jackson was acquitted on all charges. The jury found him not guilty, legally clearing his name, but for Neverland, the verdict came too late. The damage was done. The trial had permanently poisoned its image. For millions of people, the ranch would forever be the place where those terrible things were said to have happened. The acquittal could not erase the months of testimony or the grim picture painted by the prosecution. Jackson himself felt this deeply. He had won his freedom, but he had lost his home. He abandoned Neverland for good, unable to live in a place so deeply scarred by the ordeal. The paradise was officially lost. After Michael Jackson's departure, Neverland Ranch began a slow and honestly sad decline. The vibrant fantasy land fell silent. The music from the carousel stopped playing, the Ferris wheel stood motionless against the sky, and the laughter of children was replaced by an eerie quiet. Jackson left the property behind, but he was still its owner, and the enormous costs of maintaining it continued to mount. Without its creator and purpose, the ranch became a massive financial burden. The staff was downsized, the exotic animals were sent to other sanctuaries, and the amusement park rides were eventually dismantled and removed. The dream was being taken apart, piece by piece. The physical decay mirrored the decay of its reputation. The once perfectly manicured lawns became overgrown in places. The bright paint on the buildings began to fade and chip. The property, once a symbol of boundless wealth and imagination, started to look neglected and abandoned. It became a ghost of its former self, a hollow shell that only hinted at the vibrant world it once contained. The floral clock at the entrance, which once spelled out Neverland, was eventually changed. But no cosmetic fix could hide the profound sense of loss that hung over the entire estate. It was a kingdom without its king, a playground without any children. In the years following the trial and leading up to Jackson's death in 2009, the property fell into financial disarray. Jackson was facing enormous debts, and Neverland was threatened with foreclosure. A private investment firm, Colony Capital, stepped in to become a joint owner, saving it from being auctioned off. But this was a business transaction, not an act of preservation. The goal was to manage the asset and eventually sell it. This marked the official transition of Neverland from a personal dream to a complicated real estate holding. Its future would now be decided not by imagination but by market forces and balance sheets. Even after Jackson's death, the shadows lingered. The ranch stood empty, a silent monument to his spectacular rise and tragic downfall. It became a destination for curious onlookers and die-hard fans who would leave flowers and messages at its closed gates. But inside, there was only emptiness. The property was too famous to be forgotten, but too infamous to be easily loved or lived in again. It was stuck in a strange limbo, a place haunted by the memory of its creator and the controversies that defined his final years. The vibrant dream of Neverland was gone, leaving behind only a beautiful, empty, and deeply troubled landscape. Long before Michael Jackson's death, Neverland Ranch became a severe financial drain. Maintaining the property cost millions each year, including salaries for a massive staff. As Jackson's finances declined, Neverland's maintenance suffered. By 2008, he defaulted on a $24.5 million loan, and the property was nearly auctioned. Jackson partnered with Colony Capital to avoid foreclosure, who restored the property, removing the amusement park and zoo. This transformation, while practical, stripped Neverland of its unique elements, creating an identity crisis and making it harder to market. Pricing Neverland Ranch became a monumental challenge. How do you put a number on a property that is both a magnificent piece of real estate and a site of global controversy? In 2015, the ranch was officially listed for sale with an eye-watering price tag of $100 million. The agents tried to rebrand it, renaming it Sycamore Valley Ranch and marketing it based on its acreage and grand main house. But honestly, this strategy failed spectacularly. The $100 million price was widely seen as wildly optimistic, ignoring the dark cloud that hung over the estate. The public and the media refused to call it Sycamore Valley Ranch. It was, and always would be, Neverland. As the property languished on the market, the price began a long and painful descent. The price was cut again in 2019, dropping to a mere $31 million. This dramatic reduction was a clear admission that the property's history was a massive financial hurdle. It was the price of living with its ghosts. A price that, for years, no one was willing to pay. The ownership structure of Neverland Ranch after Michael Jackson's death became a hurdle in its sale. Co-owned by the Jackson Estate and Colony Capital, any decision required agreement from both parties, whose goals weren't always aligned. This created a complex dynamic, complicating the sales process. Renamed Sycamore Valley Ranch, the name Neverland is an iconic part of the Michael Jackson brand. The property was finally sold in late 2020 to billionaire Ron Burkle for a reported $22 million, a fraction of its initial asking price. This final transaction brought an end to the long and troubled sales saga. Beyond finances and legalities lies the emotional baggage attached to Neverland Ranch. It's saturated with the memory of Michael Jackson. Purchasing Neverland means acquiring a home haunted by his story. His triumphs, eccentricities, and accusations are embedded in the soil. Imagine living in a place viewed as a cultural landmark or a crime scene. Every corner holds a story not your own. To live there is to live inside a museum of pop culture history. This emotional weight is a heavy burden. The ghosts of Neverland are the memories and controversies that refuse to fade. It feels less like a home and more like a monument to Michael Jackson's complex legacy. A buyer purchases a piece of a global drama, stepping into a story still being debated. The emotional cost is a price far higher than any dollar amount. The cultural baggage of Neverland is honestly inextricably linked to the public's divided and deeply entrenched opinions about Michael Jackson. He's not a historical figure whose legacy is settled, he remains a subject of intense debate. For his devoted fans, he's an innocent genius who was unfairly persecuted, and Neverland is a sacred place, a symbol of his kindness and vision. To this group, any new owner who changes the property is, well, committing an act of desecration. They see the ranch as a shrine that should be preserved exactly as Michael intended it, a permanent memorial to his spirit. This faction of the public would scrutinize any buyer, judging their every move. On the other side of the spectrum are those who believe the accusations against him. For this segment of the public, Neverland is a deeply sinister place, a monument to celebrity excess and alleged abuse. They view the ranch with suspicion and disgust, seeing its whimsical features as part of a disturbing facade. To them, the property is tainted beyond redemption, a dark chapter in cultural history that should not be celebrated or inhabited. A new owner would face condemnation from this group for even associating with such a notorious property. They would be seen as either naive or complicit, unable to escape the negative moral judgment attached to the ranch. This sharp division in public opinion creates an impossible situation for any potential buyer. There is really no way to win. No matter who purchased the ranch or what they plan to do with it, they would inevitably face intense criticism from one side or the other, and likely both. The property is a cultural flashpoint, a place that ignites passionate and often angry debate. Owning Neverland means willingly stepping into the middle of this ongoing cultural war. It means having your motivations, your character, and your plans for the property endlessly dissected by a global audience that feels a powerful sense of ownership over the story of Michael Jackson. This is why the ranch carries such a heavy cultural weight. It's more than just real estate, it's a symbol. Its meaning changes dramatically depending on who you ask. Is it a lost paradise or a gilded cage? A place of magic or a place of manipulation? The truth is, it's all of these things at once in the collective imagination. Any buyer would have to contend with this complex and contradictory identity. The court of public opinion has already tried and judged Neverland 1,000 times over, and its conflicting verdicts make it toxic territory for anyone seeking a private or peaceful life. Given the emotional baggage, who could buy and live at Neverland Ranch? The ideal buyer would need wealth and thick skin to withstand public opinion and media scrutiny. It's too infamous for a private residence and controversial for a public attraction. Using it as a corporate retreat or event space is fraught with peril due to its dark history. Its unique past limits future uses, making it an impractical investment. Billionaire Ron Burkle, a friend of Michael Jackson, fit this profile. His personal connection and long-term vision allowed him to see beyond the public narrative. The sale of Neverland was the final chapter of a complicated story, requiring a connection to the dreamer. When Neverland Ranch hit the market in 2015, real estate agents faced a challenge, selling a famous property intertwined with controversy. Their strategy was bold: erase the past by renaming it Sycamore Valley Ranch. Marketing focused on the land and location, scrubbing the king of pop from the picture. The initial asking price was $100 million, signaling its status as a world-class property. They implemented a rigorous pre-qualification process, targeting only serious, ultra-wealthy buyers. The sales pitch: forget Neverland, see the potential of Sycamore Valley Ranch. However, the rebranding failed. It was still Neverland to everyone. The $100 million price tag was criticized as detached from reality. The gamble did not pay off. Neverland began a long, humbling journey on the real estate market. As years passed, the property sat, a beautiful but untouchable piece of pop culture history. In 2017, the price was slashed to $67 million. An admission that the initial valuation was wrong. Even at this price, the ranch failed to attract a buyer. In 2019, the price dropped again to $31 million, a nearly 70% discount. Finally, in 2020, Ron Burkle purchased the ranch for $22 million. Burkle, a former advisor to Jackson, saw it as a land banking opportunity. The sale ended Neverland's time on the market, proving it took a unique buyer to purchase a place no one else dared to. Neverland Ranch was a dream made real, a kingdom born from Michael Jackson's imagination. It represented his generosity, a place of magic for sick children and Hollywood royalty. But accusations and trials shattered that dream. The journey to sell the ranch tells a story about fame and infamy. For years, the property sat empty. Eventually, Ron Burkle purchased it, bringing an end to a painful chapter. The sale doesn't answer Neverland's future. Neverland stands as a symbol in pop culture, a monument to celebrity and scandal. The kingdom waits silently for its final chapter,